Hey guys, I just wanted to start this off by saying thank you so much to all the people who reached out to me after my last video. I really wasn't sure how I was gonna go over because it's my first time being on camera and actually saying these things out loud, knowing that other people are going to listen to it. So I was really happy to hear feedback about what you guys thought. Especially the people from the chronic illness community, because I always want to make sure that I'm doing us justice and that I'm not overlooking anything or giving any incorrect information. So I was really glad to hear from the people in the chronic illness community, and it really means a lot when you guys reach out to me, especially if you have the same conditions as me. If there's anyone out there that has any of the conditions that I've talked about and you want to talk to someone, I'll always be there. You can comment down below, or you can follow me on Instagram, which I will also link down in the description, and you can just talk to me about whatever you want. If you just want someone to listen to you, I'll be there. If you want to talk to someone who is also disabled, I'll be there. I want to be the person that wasn't there for me when I was going through it. When I first started this journey, I had no one who was going through the same thing as me. I mean, I had my mom, but she didn't know anything more than I did. We were both learning at the same time, and it's really nice to talk to someone who's kind of been through it and they can tell you what to expect, and you know that it is gonna get better and everything, and it's just kind of a roller coaster, you know? One of the things about being disabled with an invisible illness as a teenager is I always hear this one line: "You're too young to be sick," or "You're too young to have all these problems." And you know what? Yeah, I am. But that doesn't mean that I don't have them. It doesn't mean that there aren't people like me out there who are hurting. Disabilities don't come with an age limit. When you get this kind of diagnosis, it's not like the doctor says, "Oh, you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but you don't have to worry about it. You can wait until you're 50, so you know, you've got like 30 more years." It doesn't work like that. When you get a diagnosis, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's gonna affect everybody in the same way, no matter what your age is. Granted, some people have more severe versions of these disabilities, but your age doesn't determine the severity of your disability. There could be someone who's 10 who's experiencing the same things that I am at a more severe rate, and that's just a fact. Just because you're a teenager doesn't mean that your life is all fun and games, parties, drinking, everything like that. That's not... Just because you're a teenager doesn't mean you're immune to disorders and disabilities. And just because I'm not in a wheelchair doesn't mean that I'm not disabled. When I come home from a night out, whether it's out to like Dave & Buster's playing some video games, or if I'm just hanging out, walking around Target or Walmart with friends, when I get home, I crash. And it's not my energy that's crashing necessarily, but it's my body that crashes. My back hurts, my feet hurt, my knees hurt, everything just hurts. And anytime I go out and do something fun, I always pay for it the next day. And that really sucks because as a teenager, that's what my life is supposed to be, right? I'm in college, I'm supposed to be at parties, having fun, meeting new people, but since I have this disability, I've just been sitting at home trying to get better, and it never works. But if I do go out and try to have fun, I'll be knocked out for 3 days, and it's not always worth it. Currently, I actually have mono, which is really, really unfortunate paired with EDS and dysautonomia and everything like that, because it just makes everything worse. My fatigue has been unreal. I spend most of the day in my bed, and it really sucks because I feel like I'm just wasting the day away, which I kind of am, but there's not much that I can do about it. Since I have mono on top of everything else, it's really knocked me out more than normal. But the funny thing is I didn't know that I had mono until yesterday, and I've probably had mono for a few months, actually. It would make sense that a few months ago when I went to the emergency room with a 102.3 degree fever and excruciating back pain, that was probably the start of mono, and it's just kind of been dragging along because I didn't have any blood testing done for mono at the emergency room because the doctors sucked. They didn't do anything to help me. I was sobbing on the hospital bed, asking for help, for something that would help take the pain away. And she looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. You have the flu." She gave me some Motrin, and she gave me a muscle relaxer that I already take. So basically, they didn't do anything that I couldn't have done at home. So that was one pretty hefty bill just to get looked down upon from some doctor who thought she knew better because it's flu season and everybody has the flu, so it must be the flu. And she sent me home crying. And that really sucks, but it's part of being disabled. Nobody's really gonna believe you every time you say that you're in pain, especially doctors. A lot of doctors dismiss a lot of things. I've had doctors tell me that I wasn't in pain while I'm crying, and I've had doctors completely dismiss all of my symptoms for anxiety. They told me that everything that I was experiencing, the pain, the dizziness, everything, they attributed to my anxiety. And all they wanted to do was prescribe me more anxiety medication, more antidepressants, and they didn't try to fix anything that was actually causing me problems. Now, most recently, just on this past Wednesday, I was able to get in and get an MRI for my brain, which actually went pretty good. We expected to be getting 2 MRIs because we wanted to get one with contrast and one without contrast because we were trying to do a flow study to determine whether the cyst on the pineal gland in my brain was interrupting the flow of spinal fluid. And along with my Chiari, they wanted to see if that was disrupting the flow. But we actually sat down with the MRI techs, and they told us that we weren't going to be doing it with contrast. And we actually sat there and kind of went back and forth with them saying, we need to do one with contrast, and they kept telling us, no you don't. And I'm not mad about it, because the MRI techs were actually really, really nice and understanding. It's my doctor that messed up. My neurosurgeon actually forgot about me when I was actually at the neurosurgeon, like for the actual appointment. He actually wasn't there, the actual neurosurgeon wasn't there, so he had his PA come in and evaluate me, and he was the one that was supposed to order these MRIs. And we were sitting in the evaluation room, we being my mom and I, and we were sitting in there for about 45 minutes after he left and said, I'll be right back. And my mom stepped out of the room and tried to find someone that was, within hearing distance, and asked, what are we supposed to be doing? What are we waiting on? And the nurse looked up and went, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't know you guys were still here. They had completely forgotten about us. They thought we were in a different room, despite my folder being on the outside of my room, but they thought we were in a different room, checked the room, saw it was empty, and thought we had left. So they didn't bother to schedule the appointments, so I had to do that on my own. And I didn't know exactly what he wanted, but I was told to call the secretary and that she would take care of it. So I called the secretary and asked for an appointment, and she said she would get it taken care of, and she scheduled it. So when we got to the hospital to get the MRI, they told us that they had just spoken with the doctor about a minute beforehand, and the doctor said that they didn't need to do a flow study. And what I'm assuming happened was miscommunication between the doctor and his PA, or the secretary, or something along those lines. Someone got something wrong somewhere and decided that I didn't need both of the MRIs, that I just needed the Chiari protocol MRI, which was really frustrating because we had spent a lot of time waiting for one MRI, and we're going to have to come back and do it again, which really sucks, because for me, getting MRIs is completely mind-blowingly painful, because sitting still just allows everything in my body to kind of like sink down, and especially my head and like the back of my neck really starts to hurt. And if there's anyone out there who's never had an MRI or who's never had a brain MRI, you lay down on this bed type thing and they kind of roll you back into this machine that's probably about this far away from your face. So if you're claustrophobic, MRIs really, really suck. And especially for me, since I was getting a brain MRI, they put this cage over my face, and I'm sure it's just for, precaution to make sure if I like jolt my head up, I'll only hit the little cage instead of the top of the machine and I wouldn't damage it. But it's really disconcerting because the cage is literally this far away from your face. And you're kind of strapped in, your head is strapped in, and there's foam along the sides of your head, and you're in this really small area where you can't move your head because it's an MRI, and if you move, you mess it up. And it takes, I'm actually not sure exactly how long it takes It's probably about 45 minutes, but to me it feels like 2 hours every time because all I want to do is move, like just a little bit, and I know I can't because I'll mess up the MRI and then it will just take longer to have to redo it and fix it and everything. So yeah, MRIs really suck for me. I'm sure they suck for everyone else too, but with a little bit of claustrophobia and the pain that I experience and not being able to move really sucks. I'm not a fan of MRIs, but I really just want to see if there's anything that can actually be fixed with me, which is why I go through MRIs, because I'm hoping that maybe one day they'll see an MRI and say, oh look, that's something that I can fix. And that would be great. That would be fantastic, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. I'm still waiting for the results of the MRI I had on Wednesday, but I'm not getting my hopes up because anytime I get my hopes up, it always falls through. So I'm just hoping that it's nothing that's really bad. For someone who has a disability, we go through a lot of medical testing. We go through, obviously, the MRIs, like I was saying, and blood tests. I end up doing a lot of blood tests. Every time I go into the doctor, they take more blood. I think my record is, I think it's 9 vials of blood, which is, it's fun to get your blood drawn. I used to be absolutely petrified. The first time I had blood drawn, I actually cried for about 10 minutes because I was terrified, and I wouldn't look at it, and I would squeeze the little like stress ball thing that they give you, and I wouldn't let go until after the needle was out and the bandage was on and everything, and then the nurse would have to like pry it from my hands. And just a few days ago, on Tuesday actually, that was when I got 9 vials of blood drawn. I watched the needle go in and I watched the blood go into the vials, and I actually thought it was really cool, which just shows a lot of progress with me and how comfortable I've gotten with all this medical testing. I used to be really uncomfortable with it, but now I know it's just a part of my life and I have to get used to it because it's really never gonna go away. My camera cut out again. Typical. As someone who has such a rare disability, I have to go to a lot of different specialists. So I have my regular doctor, I have a gastroenterologist, I have a cardiologist, I have a geneticist, I have an orthopedist. I have a whole bunch of different doctors who all specialize in different areas of the body. And I also have a neurologist and a neurosurgeon, and I'm sure I have a bunch more. I just can't remember them all because there's so many. But each doctor does a different thing, and I always find myself in one of their offices probably about 2 or 3 times a month. I'm at some doctor for some sort of thing, which really kind of sucks, but each different specialist will do a different set of testing. So the neurologist, he scheduled MRIs, the geneticist did blood work looking for certain things in my blood. All of my doctors do different testing and they all ask different questions because it's a different part of my body that's messed up. But the testing isn't as bad as you would think it is because I just see it as one step closer to feeling better. And it really sucks that I have to take the time out of my day and go sit in a waiting room and then sit on a table waiting for a doctor to come in. But eventually they do come around, and most of the time they end up being pretty helpful and moving me one step closer to feeling better. And there will never be a cure, because the types of disabilities that I have aren't the type of thing that you can cure, but I'm hoping to get something that will help me feel better in terms of my pain and dizziness and things like that. With my disabilities, they're kind of treated symptomatically. There's not one single thing that will fix everything, but there are certain medications that I can take that will fix the dizziness to a point, and some of the gastrointestinal issues and some of the things like that, and the fatigue. But there's not a cure, and since this is chronic, there's really nothing I can do about it even in the future. And it's just something that I have to deal with as a part of my life. And yeah, it really sucks, but it's a part of who I am now, and I'm not ashamed of it. It's one of those things that's hard to explain. I don't like to go out and immediately, as soon as I meet someone, "Hi, my name's Morgan, I'm disabled." I kind of like to see how long I can get away with feeling normal and looking normal. But if something happens where I have to disclose my disability and I have to tell someone, it's not something that I'm ashamed of. It used to be something that I wouldn't like to tell people because it made me feel weak, but like I said in the last video, these are the things that make us stronger. These obstacles are things that we have to overcome that will make us stronger. I'm disabled and I'm not ashamed.